I was gaming when my sister burst in yelling, "Did you drink my pre-workout?" I was mid-raid in cockblocks when my bedroom door slammed open so hard it bounced off the wall. My older sister Natasha stood in the doorway, still in her gym clothes, her face completely drained of color. Her hands were shaking as she gripped the doorframe, and I could see sweat dripping down her temples even though she'd left for the gym over an hour ago. "Did you drink my pre-workout?" she screamed, her voice cracking on the last word. I pulled off my headset, confused because she looked absolutely terrified. "Yeah, like 20 minutes ago. It was in the fridge." "Why?" The words were barely out of my mouth before she lunged forward and grabbed my shoulders, her fingers digging in so hard it hurt. "How much did you drink? All of it? Tell me right now." Elliot. Her eyes were wild and scared in a way I'd never seen before, not even when she broke her wrist during volleyball sophomore year. I gestured to my desk, where the empty shaker bottle sat next to my energy drink cans. The whole thing. It tasted like blue raspberry and I was tired from staying up late. "What's the big deal? It's just workout stuff." Natasha made this horrible choking sound and grabbed the bottle, reading the label on the side. Her face went from pale to completely white, and she started backing toward my door while pulling out her phone with trembling hands. "Mom!" she screamed down the hallway, her voice breaking into this high-pitched panic I'd never heard from her before. "Mom, we need to go to the hospital right now. Elliot drank my pre-workout." I stood up from my gaming chair, suddenly feeling weird. My heart was beating really fast, faster than normal, and I could feel it pounding in my ears. "Natasha, you're scaring me. What's wrong with the pre-workout?" My hands started shaking, and I looked down at them, watching them tremble like I'd been freezing cold. Mom appeared in my doorway within seconds, still holding the dish towel she'd been using in the kitchen. "What happened? What's going on?" Natasha was crying now, actual tears streaming down her face as she held up the empty shaker bottle. "He drank the whole thing, Mom. The whole serving. That's 400 milligrams of caffeine plus beta-alanine and niacin and God knows what else. He's 14. His heart could stop." The words hit me like a truck, and suddenly the racing heartbeat felt a lot more serious. Mom's expression changed instantly from confused to terrified, and she grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the door. "Get in the car. Both of you. Right now." My legs felt weird and tingly as we rushed down the stairs, like they weren't quite connected to my body the right way. Natasha kept looking back at me with this expression of absolute horror on her face, and that scared me more than anything else. In the car, Mom was driving way too fast and kept asking me questions, while Natasha sat in the passenger seat, twisted around to stare at me. "How do you feel? Is your heart racing? Are you dizzy? Can you breathe okay?" Mom's knuckles were white on the steering wheel as she ran a yellow light turning red. I tried to answer, but my mouth felt weird, like my tongue was too big. My heart is really fast, and my hands won't stop shaking, and I feel tingly all over, like pins and needles everywhere. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, kind of breathy and panicked. Natasha was fully crying now, her makeup running down her face in dark streaks. "I'm so sorry, Elliot. I'm so sorry. I should have labeled it. I should have kept it in my room. This is all my fault." She kept saying it over and over while Mom drove even faster, passing cars and weaving through traffic in a way that would normally get her pulled over. The tingling sensation was getting worse, spreading from my hands and feet up into my arms and legs. My skin felt like it was buzzing, like I'd stuck my finger in an electrical socket. "Mom, something's really wrong. My whole body feels weird." I could hear the fear in my own voice, and that made the panic worse. Mom glanced at me in the rearview mirror, her eyes wide. "Just hold on, baby. We're almost there. Keep talking to me. What else do you feel?" My chest was getting tight now, like someone was sitting on it. Each breath felt harder to take than the last, and my heart was pounding so hard I could see my shirt moving with each beat. "I can't breathe right. It feels like my chest is being squeezed." Natasha turned even paler if that was possible, and she started Googling something frantically on her phone. "Mom, drive faster. Please drive faster." Her voice was barely above a whisper, like she was too scared to speak normally. Mom ran a red light completely, and I heard honking behind us, but she didn't slow down. "I'm going as fast as I can, Tash. Tell me what that stuff does. What's going to happen to him?" Natasha's voice was shaking as she read from her phone. "High doses of caffeine in kids can cause cardiac arrhythmia, seizures, severe anxiety, and in extreme cases, cardiac arrest. The beta-alanine causes the tingling sensation. The niacin flush can cause skin reactions. And all of that together in someone his size who's never had it before could be really, really bad." She couldn't even finish the sentence before she started sobbing harder. I felt my chest get even tighter, and suddenly I couldn't catch my breath at all. "Mom, I can't breathe. I really can't breathe." Panic was flooding through me now, making everything worse. My vision started getting spotty around the edges, little black dots floating in and out. Mom swerved into the emergency room entrance, barely putting the car in park before jumping out and yanking my door open. "Can you walk? Natasha, help me get him inside." Between the two of them, they practically carried me through the automatic doors. My legs felt like jelly, barely holding my weight, and my heart was beating so fast it felt like it might explode out of my chest. The emergency room nurse took one look at me and immediately called for help. "How old is he? What did he ingest?" Her voice was calm but urgent as she grabbed a wheelchair and helped me into it. Natasha was talking so fast the words ran together. "He's 14. He accidentally drank my pre-workout supplement. It's got 400 milligrams of caffeine and beta-alanine and niacin, and he drank the whole serving about 40 minutes ago. The nurse's eyes went wide, and she started pushing me toward the back immediately, not even bothering with the normal check-in process. We need a doctor right now. Possible caffeine toxicity in a minor. Everything happened really fast after that. They got me into a room and started hooking me up to machines. A blood pressure cuff squeezed my arm so tight it hurt, and someone stuck those sticky electrode things all over my chest. The monitor next to my bed started beeping, and I could see my heart rate displayed in big red numbers, 168. A doctor came in, young with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, and started examining me while asking questions. Can you tell me your name and how old you are? Her hands were gentle as she shined a light in my eyes. Elliot, I'm 14. My voice came out shaky and weak. She nodded and moved the light to my other eye. Good. And you drank pre-workout supplement? Do you know which brand? Natasha stepped forward, still crying, and held up her phone showing the product. Dragon's Breath Extreme. It's marketed to bodybuilders and has warnings all over it not to exceed 1 scoop and to assess tolerance first. He's never had caffeine before except in soda. The doctor's expression got more serious as she read the label on Natasha's phone. That's an extremely high dose of caffeine for someone his age and size, plus the other stimulants. We need to monitor him carefully for the next several hours. She turned to the nurse. Start an IV, normal saline, and let's get a full metabolic panel and cardiac enzymes. I want continuous cardiac monitoring. The nurse nodded and started prepping my arm for the IV. I hated needles, but I was too scared to even care when she stuck it in. Mom was holding my other hand so tight I thought she might break my fingers. But I didn't tell her to stop, because I needed her to hold on. Another nurse came in with a cup of what looked like black water. We need you to drink this. It's activated charcoal. It'll help absorb some of what's still in your system. The smell alone made me want to gag, but Natasha took the cup and held it to my lips. Please, Elliot, please drink it. I know it's gross, but you have to. Her voice was begging and broken, and seeing her that scared made me force myself to swallow the disgusting black liquid. It tasted like dirt mixed with chemicals, coating my mouth and throat as I choked it down. I managed about half the cup before I had to stop, gagging on the taste and texture. The tingling in my skin was getting worse, spreading across my face now. My cheeks felt like they were on fire, burning from the inside out. My face is burning, I said, bringing my shaking hands up to touch my cheeks. They felt normal temperature, but the sensation was like I'd been slapped really hard. The doctor nodded like she expected this. That's the niacin flush. It's a common reaction to high doses. It's uncomfortable but not dangerous. The cardiac effects are what we're most concerned about right now. She pointed to the monitor showing my heart rate, which was now up to 172. Mom made a small sound of distress and grabbed my hand tighter. Is his heart okay? Is he going to be okay? The doctor's expression was serious but not panicked, which somehow made me feel a tiny bit better. His heart rate is elevated, which we expected. We're going to monitor him closely for any signs of arrhythmia or other cardiac complications. The next few hours are critical. If his heart rate continues to climb, or if we see any abnormal rhythms, we may need to intervene with medication. Natasha was leaning against the wall now, her face in her hands, her whole body shaking with sobs. Mom looked between us, torn between comforting her daughter and staying with her son. Natasha, honey, this was an accident. Elliot's going to be okay. But her voice was uncertain, like she was trying to convince herself as much as Natasha. A different nurse came in with a clipboard, asking Mom questions about insurance and medical history. I could barely focus on their conversation because my skin felt like it was crawling, like there were bugs under the surface. I feel like something's crawling on me, I said, trying to scratch at my arms, but it didn't help. The doctor gently took my hands and held them still. That's another effect of what you ingested. Try not to scratch. It'll pass. The cardiac monitor kept beeping steadily, each beep marking my way too fast heartbeat. I stared at the numbers. 175 now. Why is it going up? Why isn't it going down? My voice came out high and scared. The doctor checked something on the IV and adjusted the flow. Your body is still absorbing the caffeine. It usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour to reach peak blood levels. The charcoal will help, but some of it is already in your system. We just have to wait it out and manage the symptoms. The waiting was the worst part. Every second felt like an hour, and my heart just kept pounding and pounding. My whole chest hurt now from how hard it was beating, like someone was punching me from the inside. Natasha finally moved from the wall and came to stand next to my bed. Her face was blotchy and red from crying, and she looked absolutely destroyed. I'm so sorry, Elliot. I never should have brought that stuff home. I just wanted to try it before my competition next month. I'm so sorry. She reached out and touched my arm gently, like she was afraid I might break. I tried to give her a small smile, but my face felt weird, and it probably came out wrong. It's my fault. I shouldn't have drunk something without asking. I just saw a drink in the fridge and took it. Mom shook her head firmly. No, neither of you is at fault. This was an accident. But Natasha, why did you need such a strong pre-workout? You're only 18. Natasha's face crumpled again. Everyone at the gym uses it. My trainer recommended it. I didn't think it was that dangerous. The label just says it's for energy and focus. She looked down at her hands. I didn't know it could do this to someone. The doctor finished writing something on her chart and looked at Natasha seriously. These supplements are poorly regulated. They can contain dangerous levels of stimulants, and they're marketed to young people without adequate warning about the risks. You're lucky you found out what happened quickly. If he'd been alone in his room, this could have been much worse. The words hung in the air, heavy and terrifying. I could have been alone. I could have been gaming by myself when my heart started freaking out. My vision got spotty again, and I tried to tell someone, but the words wouldn't come out right. The room started spinning slowly, and the beeping from the monitor seemed to get louder and louder. "Doctor," the nurse said urgently, pointing at something on the screen. I couldn't see what, but everyone's faces changed. The doctor moved quickly, checking the monitor and then checking my pulse manually at my wrist. His heart rate is 188 and climbing. We need to consider intervention. She turned to the nurse. "Get me a beta blocker, and let's have the crash cart nearby just in case." The words crash cart made my mom start crying for real now. Not just the silent tears, but actual sobbing. "Please help him. Please. He's only 14. Natasha had both hands over her mouth, her eyes huge and terrified as she watched the medical staff move around my bed. Another nurse rushed in pushing a small cart with equipment, and the doctor was giving rapid orders I couldn't quite follow. My chest felt like it was going to explode. Each heartbeat so hard and fast it was painful. "I can't do this. It hurts. Make it stop." I was crying now too, scared out of my mind. The doctor's voice was calm and steady, even though everyone else was panicking. "Elliot, listen to me. I need you to try to stay calm. I know that's hard, but anxiety will make your heart rate go even higher. We're going to give you medication to help slow your heart down." A nurse was preparing a syringe with something, and another nurse was adjusting the IV line. "This is a beta blocker. It's going to help your heart rate decrease. You might feel a little strange when it goes in, but that's normal." The doctor took the syringe and injected it into my IV port. Within seconds, I felt something weird, like a cold sensation spreading through my arm and into my chest. My heart, which had been pounding so hard it hurt, started to feel different. Not slower yet, but less forceful somehow. Everyone was staring at the monitor, watching the numbers. 188, 186, 185, 183. "It's working," the nurse said quietly. I could see Mom's shoulders drop in relief, though she was still crying. Natasha was gripping the bed rail so hard her knuckles were white, her eyes fixed on those red numbers dropping slowly on the screen. The doctor didn't look away from the monitor for several minutes, watching the numbers tick down gradually. 179, 175, 171. Finally, at 165, she seemed to relax a little bit. "Okay, it's responding to the medication. That's good. We're not out of the woods yet, but that's a good sign." She turned to look at me, her expression softer. "How do you feel now?" I took inventory of my body. My heart was still beating fast, but it didn't feel quite as violent. "A little better, I think. It still feels really fast." The doctor nodded. "It's going to stay elevated for a while. The caffeine needs time to work through your system, but the medication should keep it from getting dangerously high again." She pulled up a chair and sat down next to my bed. "You're going to be here for several hours while we monitor you. The half-life of caffeine is about 5 to 6 hours, which means it takes that long for half of it to leave your system. So you're going to feel the effects for quite a while." The thought of feeling like this for hours made me want to cry more, but I tried to hold it together. A different doctor came in, older with gray at his temples, and talked quietly with my doctor. They both looked at the monitor and at some papers. Then the older doctor nodded and left again. That was Dr. Kelvin, our pediatric cardiologist. He's going to review your cardiac workup and make sure we're not missing anything. Natasha made a small whimpering sound at the word cardiologist, and Mom put her arm around her. "It's just a precaution, right? He's going to be fine?" Mom's voice was desperate for reassurance. The doctor chose her words carefully. "Most cases of caffeine toxicity resolve without permanent damage, especially with quick intervention like we've had here. But we need to be thorough. The amount he ingested was significant for someone his age and size." She turned back to me. "Do you play any sports, Elliot? Any history of heart problems?" I shook my head, which made the room spin a little. "No sports, really. Just PE class at school. And no heart problems that I know of." The doctor made a note on her chart. "Good. That's in your favor." Time moved weird in the emergency room. Sometimes it felt like seconds were crawling by, and sometimes I'd blink and realize 20 minutes had passed. The tingling in my skin was finally starting to fade a little bit, but my hands were still shaking. The monitor kept beeping steadily. 158, 155, 152. Slowly coming down, but still way higher than normal. A nurse came in every 15 minutes to check my blood pressure and ask me how I felt. Mom never let go of my hand except when they needed to check my vitals. Natasha stayed pressed against the wall, watching everything with red, swollen eyes. At some point, a social worker came in. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice, but I could see the concern on her face. "Hi, I'm Carly Monroe. I work with families in crisis situations. I need to ask a few questions about what happened." She pulled out a folder and a pen, settling into a chair. My stomach dropped, suddenly understanding that this wasn't just a medical emergency. There were going to be consequences. "Did anyone force Elliot to drink the supplement?" Carly looked between all of us. Mom and Natasha both said no at the same time, and I shook my head. I found it in the fridge. I thought it was a normal drink. Nobody made me drink it. Carly wrote something down. And Natasha? You're 18? Natasha nodded, looking terrified. I bought the pre-workout at a supplement store. I had to show my ID. The guy at the store said it was fine for anyone over 18. Her voice was getting higher and shakier with each word. Carly made more notes. These supplements are legal, but can be dangerous, especially for minors. I need to document this incident. There will be a report filed with the county, but based on what I'm hearing, this was clearly accidental. However, I'm going to recommend that the family receive education on supplement safety and proper storage of potentially dangerous substances. She looked at Natasha. That product is too dangerous to keep in a household with minors. Even with labels, accidents happen. You'll need to dispose of it. Natasha nodded quickly. I already threw it away. Before we came here, I threw the whole container in the outside trash. I never want to see it again. Carly's expression softened. I can see how much you care about your brother. This was a serious accident, but you responded appropriately by getting him medical help immediately. That probably saved him from much worse outcomes. She stood up and handed Mom some pamphlets. These are resources for supplement safety and poison control. I recommend reading through them as a family. After Carly left, the room felt even more somber. The reality of what could have happened was sinking in for all of us. What was I thinking? Natasha said suddenly, her voice anguished. Why did I even buy something that dangerous? My trainer said everyone uses it, that it was normal, but it's not normal. It almost killed my little brother. She slid down the wall and sat on the floor, pulling her knees to her chest. Mom let go of my hand long enough to kneel next to Natasha. Honey, you didn't know. These things are marketed as safe when they're not. You're not a bad person. You made a mistake. But Natasha just shook her head, rocking back and forth slightly. I could have killed him. Do you understand that, Mom? My little brother could have died because I wanted to perform better at the gym. The doctor came back in to check my latest blood work results. Your metabolic panel looks okay. No signs of liver or kidney damage. The cardiac enzymes are slightly elevated, but that's expected given the stress on your heart. We'll recheck them in a few hours. She looked at the monitor. Heart rate is 143 now. Still elevated, but improving steadily. I felt exhausted, like I'd run a marathon even though I'd been lying in bed this whole time. Every muscle in my body ached, and my head was pounding. Can I have some water? My mouth is really dry. The nurse brought me a cup with a straw, and I drank gratefully. The water tasted weird, probably from the activated charcoal, but I didn't care. My hands were still shaking as I held the cup, and I had to concentrate hard not to spill. Time kept passing in that weird emergency room way. They moved me from the ER to an observation unit, a small room with a more comfortable bed and a chair that folded out for Mom to sleep on. Natasha went home to get us some clothes and supplies, and when she came back, her eyes were even more swollen. She handed me my phone and charger, along with my Nintendo Switch. I thought you might want something to do. I took them gratefully, but when I tried to play a game, my hands shook too much to use the controls properly. Just holding the Switch made my heart rate spike on the monitor, so I had to put it down. I can't even play games, I said, frustrated and scared. When is this going to stop? The nurse who was checking my vitals again gave me a sympathetic look. The peak effects should start wearing off in the next couple of hours. You drank it around 6 p.m., it's 10:30 now. You're getting close to the point where you should start feeling more normal, but you're going to be tired afterward, like really tired. Your body has been through a lot. She was right. By midnight, I could feel the intense buzzing sensation finally starting to fade. My heart rate on the monitor was down to 118, which was still high but so much better than before. The shaking in my hands was less severe, and I didn't feel like my skin was crawling anymore. But I was exhausted in a way I'd never experienced before, like every cell in my body had been drained of energy. Dr. Kelvin, the pediatric cardiologist, came in around 1 a.m. to review my case. He looked at all my charts and the monitor readings, asking me questions about how I felt. Any chest pain? Trouble breathing? Dizziness? I shook my head to all of them. Just really, really tired. He examined me, listening to my heart for a long time with his stethoscope. Finally, he straightened up and gave Mom a small smile. His heart sounds good. Strong, regular rhythm now. No signs of arrhythmia or damage. Kids are resilient, and he's lucky you got him here so quickly. If he'd waited longer, we could have been looking at a very different outcome. He pulled up a chair, his expression serious. Elliot, I need you to understand something. What you drank today is not meant for someone your age. Ever. These products are made for adult bodybuilders, and even many adults can't handle them safely. The amount of caffeine you consumed is equivalent to about 8 cups of strong coffee all at once, plus other stimulants. Your heart wasn't ready for that. I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't know what it was. Dr. Kelvin turned to Natasha, who was curled up in the corner chair. And you need to understand that these supplements are largely unregulated. The FDA doesn't test them before they go on the market. Companies can put almost anything in them and make wild claims about benefits. Your trainer was wrong to recommend something this strong, especially for someone your age. Natasha's voice was hoarse from crying. I'm never touching that stuff again. Never. The doctor nodded approvingly. Good. Stick to proper nutrition and regular training. That's all you need. He turned back to me. We're going to keep you overnight for observation. If everything stays stable, you can go home tomorrow afternoon. But you need to take it easy for a few days. No intense physical activity. Your heart needs time to recover from the stress. Mom thanked him profusely as he left, and then she finally let herself break down completely. She climbed onto the hospital bed next to me and just held me, crying into my hair. I thought I was going to lose you. When your heart rate kept going up and up, I thought. She couldn't finish the sentence. I hugged her back as tight as I could with the IV in my arm. I'm okay, Mom. I'm here. We stayed like that for a long time. Eventually, a nurse brought in pillows and blankets for Mom and Natasha to use. They both insisted on staying with me, even though the fold-out chair looked really uncomfortable. By 3 a.m., my heart rate had finally dropped to 98, which the night nurse said was close enough to normal that she wasn't worried anymore. You're out of the danger zone, she said softly, checking my IV. Try to get some sleep. Your body needs rest to recover. I did feel sleepy now, that exhausted, heavy feeling where your whole body just wants to shut down. But every time I started to drift off, I'd remember the feeling of my heart racing out of control, and I'd jerk awake again. I'm scared to sleep, I admitted to Mom, who was still lying next to me on the small hospital bed. What if my heart starts going crazy again? Mom stroked my hair gently. The medicine is working, and they're monitoring you. You're safe now. I promise I'll stay awake and watch the monitor. If anything changes, I'll wake you up immediately. That reassurance helped enough that I finally fell asleep, though it was restless and filled with dreams of my heart exploding and being unable to breathe. When I woke up around 8 a.m., sunlight was streaming through the window, and I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. Every muscle in my body was sore, my head was pounding, and my mouth was incredibly dry. But my heart rate on the monitor showed 87, which was normal. Good morning, Mom said softly. She was sitting in the chair now, looking exhausted. How do you feel? I took inventory of my body. Sore, tired, headache, but better than last night. Natasha was asleep in the other chair, her mouth slightly open, looking younger and more vulnerable than usual. A day nurse came in to check my vitals and draw more blood. This is the final check to make sure everything's back to normal. If these labs look good, you'll probably be discharged this afternoon. The morning passed slowly with doctors and nurses coming and going. They had me eat breakfast, which I struggled through because I had no appetite, but they wanted to make sure my stomach was okay after the activated charcoal. Dr. Kelvin came back around noon with good news. All your labs look normal. Heart rate is stable. You're cleared to go home, but I want you to follow up with your pediatrician in a week. And no caffeine for at least a month, maybe longer. Your body needs time to reset. Mom was already packing our stuff, eager to get out of the hospital. Natasha had woken up and was helping, though she still looked like she'd been crying. The discharge process took forever, with paperwork and instructions and prescriptions. They gave me medication for the headache and some information sheets about caffeine toxicity and recovery. The nurse went over everything twice, making sure we understood the warning signs to watch for at home. Finally, we were in the car heading home. The drive felt surreal, like the last 18 hours had been some kind of nightmare. When we pulled into our driveway, everything looked normal. The world had kept going while mine had fallen apart. Inside the house, Dad was waiting. He'd been at a work conference 2 states away and had driven through the night to get home. He pulled me into a tight hug the second I walked in, not saying anything for a long moment. I'm okay, Dad, I said, my voice muffled against his chest. He pulled back and looked at me, his eyes red like he'd been crying during the drive home. I know, but I wasn't there, and that's going to haunt me. He looked at Natasha. And you saved him. You got him help immediately. That took courage. Natasha started crying again, and Dad hugged her too. That afternoon, I slept for 4 hours straight, exhausted in a way that went bone deep. When I woke up, it was getting dark outside, and I could hear my parents and Natasha talking downstairs. I went down slowly, still feeling weak and shaky. They were sitting at the kitchen table with a pile of supplement containers and bottles spread out. What's all that? I asked. Dad gestured to the collection. Everything from Natasha's room that could be potentially dangerous. We're going through it all. Most of these need to be thrown away or locked up. Natasha was reading labels, her expression getting more horrified with each one. I didn't realize half this stuff was dangerous. The guy at the store said it was all safe and natural. Mom shook her head. Natural doesn't mean safe. Poison ivy is natural. She picked up a bottle of fat burners. These have stimulants too, just not as much as the pre-workout, but they still shouldn't be accessible. We spent the next hour going through everything, deciding what needed to be disposed of and what could be kept if locked away. Dad went out and bought a small safe for the garage, and anything remotely concerning went into it. This is how it should have been from the start, Dad said firmly. If it's not safe for everyone in the house to access, it gets locked up, no exceptions. The next few days were hard. I was exhausted all the time, and my body ached like I had the flu. Dr. Kelvin had warned me that caffeine withdrawal on top of the toxicity would make me feel terrible for a while. He wasn't wrong. I had horrible headaches, was irritable and shaky, and couldn't concentrate on anything. School called to ask when I'd be coming back, and Mom told them I needed at least a week to recover. She didn't go into details, just said I'd had a medical emergency. Natasha barely left the house for those first few days. She quit the gym she'd been going to, saying she couldn't face the trainer who'd recommended the supplement. She threw away her meal prep containers and all her gym supplements, even the ones that were probably harmless. I'm done with all of it, she said. I'd rather be slower at volleyball than risk something like this happening again. On the fourth day home, we were both on the couch watching TV when Natasha turned to me. I need you to know something. What happened wasn't your fault. None of it. You're 14. You saw a drink in the fridge and drank it. That's normal kid behavior. I'm the one who brought something dangerous into our house without thinking about the consequences. I nodded, but I still felt guilty. I should have asked, though. I should have checked what it was. Natasha shook her head firmly. No, I should have labeled it clearly. Should have kept it in my room. Should have never bought something that dangerous in the first place. This is on me, not you. We sat in silence for a moment. I'm sorry I scared you, I said finally. I'm sorry I almost killed you, she replied. And we both kind of laughed because what else could we do at that point? A week later, I went for my follow-up with Dr. Martinez, my pediatrician. She did a full exam and another EKG to check my heart. Everything looked normal, which was a huge relief. You were very lucky, she said seriously. Caffeine toxicity can cause permanent heart damage or even death. The fact that you're okay is largely due to how quickly your sister got you to the hospital. She printed out some information for me about caffeine and energy drinks. I want you to understand something, Elliot. The energy drink industry markets to teenagers, but their products can be dangerous, especially if you have any underlying heart conditions you don't know about. What happened to you could happen to anyone who drinks too much of this stuff. I promised her I'd stay away from energy drinks and pre-workout supplements forever. Mom made the same promise, and we all signed a literal piece of paper agreeing to it, which felt silly, but also kind of important. Going back to school was awkward. Somehow, word had gotten around that I'd been in the hospital, and people kept asking what happened. I settled on saying I'd had a bad reaction to something I ate, which was technically true. My best friend, Kyle, cornered me at lunch and asked for the real story. I told him everything, and he just stared at me with his mouth open. Dude, you could have died. The way he said it, so matter-of-fact and scared, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Yeah, I said quietly. I know. Kyle made me promise to never drink anything from his house without asking what it was first, which made me laugh but also seemed like a good policy. The whole experience changed how I thought about supplements and energy drinks. I started noticing them everywhere, in gas stations, grocery stores, even at school vending machines. All of them marketed with promises of energy and focus and performance, but none of them with warnings about what could happen if you drank too much. Natasha's college volleyball season started, and she was playing without any supplements at all. She said she felt better actually, less jittery and anxious. Her coach asked what had changed, and Natasha told her the whole story. The coach immediately banned pre-workout supplements from the team locker room and brought in a sports nutritionist to teach them about proper nutrition instead. 2 months later, I was finally feeling completely normal again. The headaches had stopped, I wasn't tired all the time anymore, and my heart rate was consistently in the healthy range. We had a family dinner to celebrate, just the 4 of us, eating pizza and watching a movie. It felt normal and safe and boring in the best possible way. I never want to go through anything like that again, Mom said during a commercial break. We all agreed. Dad pulled out the supplement safe from the garage and showed us it was empty. I threw away the last of it. There's nothing in our house now that could hurt anyone. He looked at Natasha. I'm proud of you for making good choices. Looking back now, I can see how easily it could have ended differently. If Natasha had come home just 10 minutes later, if Mom had decided to wait and see if I felt better instead of going straight to the hospital, if my heart had reacted differently to the medication. So many small things that could have changed the outcome completely. I think about that sometimes. How close I came to being another statistic. Another kid who died from something that's legal and easily accessible. Natasha and I are closer now than we were before. She checks in on me more, and we actually talk about real stuff instead of just passing each other in the hallway. She tells me about her games and classes, and I tell her about school and my friends. The experience forced us to be honest with each other in a way we hadn't been before. Mom and Dad implemented new rules about communication and asking permission before taking anything from anywhere in the house. It seemed excessive at first, but after what happened, none of us complained. We're all more careful now, more aware of what could go wrong. That's probably the biggest thing I learned from all of this. Being careful isn't paranoid or overprotective. It's smart. Sometimes I still think about those hours in the emergency room, watching my heart rate climb higher and higher on the monitor, feeling like my chest was going to explode. The fear I felt wasn't something I can really explain to people who weren't there. It was primal and overwhelming. The certainty that something inside me was breaking, and I couldn't stop it. I'm grateful that Natasha found me when she did, that she knew immediately how serious it was, that she didn't try to wait and see if I'd be okay. Those decisions saved my life, even though they were decisions she never should have had to make. I'm grateful that our hospital had doctors who knew what to do, who had the medication I needed, who monitored me through the worst of it. So many things had to go right for me to be okay, and they did. But they almost didn't, and that's what keeps me up sometimes at night. The pre-workout supplement container is long gone, thrown away in 3 different trash bags across 2 different dumpsters because Natasha was terrified someone else might find it and use it. The supplement industry is still selling products like that to teenagers and young adults, still marketing them as safe and necessary for performance. Nobody talks about the kids who end up in emergency rooms with racing hearts and seizures and worse. Nobody mentions that on the labels or in the advertisements. They just show muscular people looking energetic and successful, implying that you need their product to be like them. It's a lie, but it's a profitable lie, and they're not going to stop selling it just because kids like me sometimes end up in the hospital because of it. I hope my story makes at least one person think twice before drinking something without knowing what's in it. Makes one person check labels and ask questions, and understand that just because something is legal and sold in stores doesn't mean it's safe. Makes one older sibling think about where they store potentially dangerous stuff. Makes one parent talk to their kids about supplements and energy drinks before something happens. That would make everything I went through worth it. Because even though I'm okay now, I know how easily I might not have been. And that knowledge, that understanding of how fragile everything is, stays with you, changes you, makes you more careful, and more grateful, and more aware of all the ways things can go wrong in an instant, because someone didn't think about consequences. Natasha still has moments where she breaks down crying, usually late at night when she thinks nobody can hear her. I've heard her apologizing to herself, playing out scenarios of what could have happened, beating herself up for a mistake she made without knowing how serious it could be. I try to remind her that I'm okay, that we're all okay, that the guilt isn't helping anyone. But I understand it because I feel guilty too, for taking something that wasn't mine, for not thinking about what it might be, for scaring everyone like that. We're both learning to live with what happened, to process it and move forward without letting it define us completely. Some days are easier than others. Some days I forget about it entirely, caught up in normal teenage stuff like homework and games and hanging out with friends. Other days, something will remind me, seeing an energy drink at a gas station, feeling my heart beat fast after running in PE, hearing someone talk about supplements, and it all comes rushing back. The fear, the panic, the certainty that something was terribly wrong. Those moments pass, but they never really go away completely. They're part of me now, part of my story, part of how I understand the world and my place in it. If you're still here, you're a true fan. Show some support with a like and subscribe to catch the next one.